The town of Cleary's End was old, older than time itself, some would say. It was the kind of place where secrets lingered in the fog, and every town has its secrets. Cleary's End had bus 57. Locals whispered about the bus that ran after midnight, a phantom route with no fixed schedule. It appeared only to those foolish enough to seek it out. They said it led to a place you could never escape. No one knew who drove the bus or where it went. The only thing certain was that those who boarded bus 57 were never quite the same. It was just an old ghost story, right? A campfire tale to scare the kids. At least that's what Arjun told himself. He was a college student, a man of logic and reason. He scoffed at the local legends. At least he did until the dare. His friends challenged him. They knew about his fascination with the supernatural, his love for a good mystery. So they dared him to find bus 57, to ride it, to prove the legend wrong. Arjun laughed it off at first, but the seed of curiosity had been planted. It grew with every passing day, fueled by the whispers and the strange looks he received from the locals. He had to see it for himself. Armed with only his wits, a flashlight and a digital camera, Arjun ventured out into the night. The air was thick with anticipation. He could feel it in his bones. This was a mistake. He waited at the old abandoned bus stop on the edge of town, the one they said bus 57 visited, the one with the barely visible number 57 scrawled on its side. The clock chimed midnight. Just as the last echo of their final chime faded, a low rumble shook the ground. Out of the thick fog emerged bus 57. It was ancient, held together by rust and shadows. The headlights flickered to life, casting an eerie yellow glow on the deserted street. Arjun froze, his heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silence. He thought about running, but something drew him forward. He had come this far. He had to see it through. Taking a deep breath, Arjun stepped onto the bus. The air inside was cold, heavy with the scent of dust and something else, something unsettling. The bus was empty except for the driver. He was a shadowy figure, his features obscured by the darkness and the wide-brimmed hat pulled low over his face. He didn't speak. He just nodded curtly and gestured towards the back of the bus. Arjun hesitated for a moment before making his way down the aisle. Each step seemed to echo in the heavy silence. He chose a seat near the back, his hand trembling as he clutched his camera. As the bus lurched into motion, Arjun noticed something strange. The scenery outside the windows wasn't familiar. It wasn't even possible. Buildings stretched impossibly high, their peaks disappearing into the swirling fog above. Streets twisted and turned, defying logic and reason. It was like stepping into a nightmare. The bus began to fill. Shadowy figures materialized in the seats around him. They were all shapes and sizes, their faces hidden in the darkness. But they all had one thing in common: their eyes. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. They were fixed on Arjun. He felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He tried to focus on something else, anything else, but he couldn't escape the feeling of being watched. Whispers began to fill the air, soft at first, then growing louder. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, and they were all saying the same thing: his name, Arjun. 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 He fumbled for his camera, his fingers trembling. He pointed the lens at his reflection in the window. He wanted to capture this moment, to prove he wasn't going crazy. But when he looked at the image on the screen, his blood ran cold. Staring back at him wasn't his own reflection, it was something else. Something sinister. It was his face, but twisted into a grotesque mockery. And it was smiling, a slow, chilling smile that spread across its lips. His camera flickered and died. The bus screeched to a halt. Arjun scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to get off this bus. He stumbled down the aisle, pushing past the shadowy figures that seemed to multiply with every passing second. He didn't look back. He slammed into the stop request button over and over again. Finally, the doors hissed open, revealing his street, his stop. Arjun didn't hesitate. He bolted off the bus and ran all the way home. He didn't stop running until he reached the safety of his apartment. He slammed the door shut and leaned against it, gasping for breath. He was safe. He was home. But as he looked up at the mirror hanging on the wall, his blood ran cold once more. Standing in his doorway was his reflection, or rather it was the thing from the bus, wearing his face like a mask. It smiled that same chilling smile. "Did you enjoy the ride, Arjun?" it whispered. "Don't worry," it added, its voice a raspy echo of his own. "You'll never be alone again."